Welcome HCI members. Thanks so much for joining us for this webcast, Recruiting Goes Mobile, Are You In? Part of our ongoing series on recruitment advertising and communications. We're going to get started with the webcast in just a few moments. I'll take you through a couple of housekeeping items first. Our recommended method for listening to today's webcast is through your computer speakers, or perhaps you listen over headphones. Either way, you'll want to check and make sure that you have the volume turned on and turned up. You may also need to go to the voice button on the menu bar at the top of your screen and click on Join Audio. Right next to that voice button, I'll point out to everyone the Q&A button. I'll encourage you all to click on it now. The Q&A button will open a question and answer interface, which you can undock and move anywhere on your screen to keep open throughout the entirety of the webcast. I'm encouraging you to do this for a couple of reasons. First, should you experience any technical difficulties during today's webcast, you can use that question and answer interface to interact directly with a tech specialist who will be happy to assist you in a resolution. And second, because we encourage your questions, comments, and best practices. Feel free to type it in, and I'll be happy to present it on your behalf. Here's a quick snapshot of how we're going to be spending our time together today. In just a moment, we'll get started with our feature presentation. Of course, we'll be sure to save time for your questions. And if we have a few extra minutes together, at the end of the hour, I'll wrap things up by taking you on a tour virtually of the Recruitment Advertising and Communications Learning track page and show you some of the many resources we've made available to you there. My name is Amy Lewis. I'm the Director of the Talent Acquisition Community here at the Human Capital Institute. I've shared a couple of different ways that you can connect with me if you'd like to. You can connect with me on LinkedIn, follow me on Twitter, or read about our opinions on human capital management out on our blog at thetalenteconomy.com. I'm very pleased to welcome today's guest. Joel Cheeseman is head cheese over at Cheesehead. He is a widely read blogger on emerging recruitment issues in the world. Joel's blog is a daily chronicle of how the internet and technology are shaping human resources and how organizations can attract the talent needed to thrive in tomorrow's economy. He's also founder of HR SEO, an organization to help employers and companies in the recruitment space move to a world where search engines deliver high-quality and cost-effective traffic. Joel, welcome to you today.
Thank you, Amy. Thanks for having me.
Well, we're very pleased to have you with us, and so with that, I'll turn things over to you to tell us about how recruiting is going mobile.
Sounds good. And thank you, and also thanks to Ellen on your team for putting this together, and a particular big thank you to HCI for asking me to come on and talk about mobile. It's something that I'm very passionate about. So I will preface the presentation by saying I typically hate webinars. And the reason I hate webinars is that I don't get kind of a face-to-face interaction in terms of what's the audience thinking about what I'm speaking on. So I don't know if you're laughing or if you think that I'm horrible or what's going on. So I'm going to do my best to make sure that we're entertaining. We do have some videos, which hopefully we won't have any technological issues with. And Amy's going to help me kind of go through that. But we're also going to keep this fairly general because I don't have a very good sense of how advanced the audience is. My assumption is that mobile is probably something fairly new to everyone. So we're going to keep it fairly high level. I guess in the Q&A, if you have something more advanced that you'd like to ask, please feel free to do so. So Amy, if you go ahead and go to the next screen and actually play the first video that we have.
Well, so we're a pretty connected world then, huh, Joel? We just finished watching the Sprint commercial.
Well, I'm glad that it played. So great. So this is a commercial that probably most of you have seen here in the U.S., and I think it's just a good opener to kind of exemplify how ubiquitous mobile is in our lives, and how probably there's a pretty good chance that everyone out there listening to has their mobile within reach, and will probably check email, Twitter, or Facebook in the time that I'm speaking. And I do actually encourage people to tweet during the conference or during the presentation if you like. But if you could go to slide number 3, or the next slide. So as I was contemplating my business sim job, I wanted to get a sense of whether searching for jobs or connecting with candidates really made sense on a mobile device. And one of the things that I did was I kind of fell back on my experience in the job board space. And if you're with a job board or know anything about job boards, you probably know that most people search for jobs online on Monday, Tuesday, and Friday. They're either coming back to a job that they don't like that much, or they've spent an entire week at a job that they don't like that much, and they're looking for other opportunities. Now, we also know, in contrast to that more and more employers are cracking down on such activities. So most of you may have some prominent job boards blocked at your company, or if nothing else, you probably don't want them to know that you're looking at job sites or looking at jobs online. So I believe that the mobile phone is going to be the one thing that we kind of escape our bosses' eyeballs and the firewalls in our company. I also think that mobile devices will be above the fray, so that when we search our Facebook updates or what our friends are doing, or we want to tweet, or we want to check something online that we don't want our bosses or companies to know about, that the mobile device will be something that we use. So this was a prominent thing to make me kind of say, like, there probably is some relevancy to the mobile device and connecting employers to candidates. Next slide. So I kind of mentioned we love our mobile phones, right? I would venture to say that everyone on this call has a mobile phone. Most of you probably have a smartphone, which would be a phone that connects to the internet. Most of us can't live without our phone, and the younger that we get, the more vital it is to our existence. And if it makes sense that you love your own phone and that you can't live without your phone, the candidates that you're trying to recruit or the job seekers that you're trying to connect with probably are the same way. So it certainly makes sense that if there's a medium that someone believes should be with them at all times, that you should be connecting with them through that medium. Next slide, please. So from a recruiting standpoint, and I'm a big believer that recruiting and marketing and even sales to a certain degree are largely the same thing. And when you look at the marketing question, or you look at the mobile question as a marketer, you really look at the reach of mobile devices. And some of these numbers are a little bit old because the mobile space is growing so quickly, but roughly there are about 4 to 4.5 billion mobile devices on the planet. Now, if you look at how many people are on the planet, it's about 6 billion. So globally, just about everyone that can have a phone does have a phone. If you put that in contrast with some other mediums, there's roughly about 4 times more mobile devices than there are internet connections. There are about 3 times more mobile devices than there are PCs, and there are about twice as many mobile devices as there are televisions. So strictly from a mobile or from a marketing perspective, nothing can compete with the reach of a mobile device. And I know in recruiting we talk a lot about social media and Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter. The numbers of people that are on Facebook, for example, which is the largest of those 3 at about 250 plus million, it's nothing compared to the mobile phone. So just from a strictly marketing perspective, if you're not leveraging mobile, you're missing out on a large demographic. Next slide. To put that into a better context, here in the USA, which I assume is most of the audience, there are about 65 million smartphones. There are about 50 billion text messages sent every month, and that number is very fluid, but 50 billion is probably fairly conservative. Most of you have probably sent a text message before. Some of you probably send multitudes of text messaging. And even if you don't, the numbers certainly show that people are texting. And more than likely, the audience that you're trying to connect with is texting. Globally, the latest number that's come out on smartphones is about 600 million. So, and that's predicted to grow quite a bit. Steve Ballmer, CEO of Microsoft, recently stated that the percentage of smartphones in the U.S. by 2012 or 13 will be about 85% of the market. Right now, it's between 25 and 30. So the growth of smartphones here in the U.S. in particular is going to be blowing up in the next few years, and it will as well globally to another level as well. But I assume that most of you are recruiting in the U.S. Go to the next slide, please. So you've all heard of the iPhone. Many of you probably have an iPhone. The iPhone was a real catalyst to kind of look at mobile marketing as a time that's come. The iPhone basically puts a computer in your pocket, and with each iteration, it's becoming a more and more powerful computer. And the iPhone is really driving a lot of the innovation around the mobile industry. So you look at BlackBerry and some of the phones that they're creating. You look at Google's operating system, Android. If you have a G1 or MyTouch out there, Microsoft Mobile, which has a large percentage of the market, is really innovating along the lines of what the iPhone is doing. So the iPhone has really taken how we connect with our phone to a new level, and it's really driving a lot of the stuff and a lot of the interest in this presentation, for example. Next slide. So when we look at going mobile, my first recommendation in particular is making sure that you have a site that is mobile friendly. So if I was to get on your phone on a basic level Nokia or Samsung, would I be able to browse your job listings? Would I be able to see pages about your culture or diversity or your benefits or whatever kind of message you want to relay? Would I be able to search jobs in a mobile friendly manner? Would I be able to bookmark or email jobs to myself to be able to apply, through an applicant tracking system, for example, later? And the process by which most of that happens is what's called WAP. WAP is Wireless Application Protocol, and it's really just a protocol of saying what should a site adhere to in terms of being accessible through all mobile devices. Because if you look at the mobile world, you're looking at about 5,000 plus different devices that your site has to be accessible on. And you're also looking at different sizes of screens, different speeds, a lot of different things go into it. So WAP is a way to basically create a consistency where your site can be guaranteed to be seen and browsed on any phone out there. The URL that I put out there, the .mobi address, is a mobile emulator where you can basically plug in any URL and see what that URL or that website would look like on a basic mobile device. So if after the presentation or even during you want to go in and plug in your own career site URL or your own website, I certainly encourage you to do that. Chances are that you're not very mobile friendly and that you probably have some work to do in connecting with users on your mobile device. Next slide, please. So this is just an example of one of the sites that we've done at InJob. This one was for Recruiting Nevada. We've done sites for job boards as well as employers. But you'll notice that the interface is very simple. We have some very strict guidelines at InJob saying that sites need to be simple and they need to be fast. Fast because if you remember the days of dial-up modems, most phones are like dial-up modems. So if your site isn't lean and mean and takes a long time to download, you're probably going to be losing some people in the process. We also cut to the chase in terms of what do people want to do on a mobile device. For job sites, that's typically search for jobs. I know a lot of job sites and employers, have multitudes of pages about resources or learn more about us or employee profiles. But if you cut your site down to the most basic and most important elements, it's probably going to be job search. You can certainly add things around that. As phones get faster, more advanced, certainly things like adding video, more graphic, antiquated or more visually appealing sites, I think will come into play. You can certainly serve up different sites to different devices. So knowing that the iPhone, for example, is a more advanced device, you may look at presenting a more advanced site to an iPhone versus a Nokia, N70, for example. Next slide. So this is an example of an employer that you all know, McDonald's. And if you go to mobile.mcstate.com, you'll be able to see, if it's on your iPhone, you'll be able to see McDonald's employer presentation on a mobile device. And that's one company that's leveraging mobile to a degree that a lot of companies aren't. And this is one place to kind of emphasize that if you're currently in the retail business, and that would include anyone from McDonald's to Walmart to Saks Fifth Avenue, mobile makes a lot of sense. In addition to that, if you're doing any campus recruiting, mobile tends to make a lot of sense. Healthcare, trucking, et cetera, any of those industries where you have a really mobile audience or someone that's a younger demographic, mobile is probably going to make more sense than if you're recruiting six-figure executives for the corner office. But there's probably a pretty good chance that a lot of the people out there listening are looking at tapping into the demographic that is more mobile than others. Next slide, please. So you're probably asking yourself, if we were to go mobile, what would that mean to our traffic? How many people would actually go to the site? What would we actually expect to get from that? Now, that's a question that is largely dependent on how much you're willing to market it. Just having a mobile device or having a mobile version of your site probably isn't going to bring back that much of a return. But if you have a mobile site, if you're doing text messaging or anything along those lines, and you're actively promoting it in your job descriptions, or you're actively promoting it to your current database of users, among other things that you might be doing. Nielsen recently did a study that showed about 14% increase would be expected having a mobile device versus not having a mobile device. And I can tell you from a marketing perspective that if you told me, like, hey, if you just had a mobile device and marketed it at a pretty basic level, that you could expect 14% increase in traffic, I would certainly do that in a heartbeat. So if you're looking at how do we increase traffic fairly inexpensively, going mobile could be a way to do that. Next slide, please. So you've probably heard of SMS. Basically, that's text messaging. MMS is going to be multimedia text messaging. So you're looking at serving at video, pictures, anything that's kind of multimedia in fashion. SMS is by far the most prominent way that you can connect with people on their mobile devices. Over 98% of the phones out there that are sold today have text messaging. So even if you don't have a smartphone or anything like that, you can definitely connect with people through text messaging. And it's interesting that you're looking at, particularly in third world countries like Africa, parts of Asia, Middle East, et cetera, where people don't have computers, let alone internet connections. Most of those people have phones, and people are using those text messaging to recruit those people. So having someone text into a message or text in being interested in a job at your company, you can basically call that person back, send them through a phone screen, call them in for an interview, et cetera. So if nothing else, SMS is something that you should be doing, even if you don't go with a mobile version of your website, which we do recommend as well. If you go to the next slide, please, Amy, and play the Sumo Text video.
Okay, Joel, we're back.
Okay, great. Thanks, Amy. So what you saw, aside from seeming like a commercial for Sumo Text, of which we have no association, by the way, it's a great kind of overview of how text messaging works from a very basic level. Amy, if you could go to the next slide. So how does text messaging maybe transfer over to the recruiting space? And the first example I wanted to show was a campaign done for UPS. And obviously, I'm assuming that most of you know who UPS is. And the UPS definitely has seasonal hiring where the holidays come around or whatever, and they need more delivery guys and gals than they do throughout the rest of the year. So what UPS did was they had a text messaging campaign. And if you were to text, I think it was UPS jobs to their short code, the top there you would get a message on your phone saying UPS is hiring seasonal driver, helpers work for Thanksgiving, Christmas. Visit our URL, which if you go down to the screenshot of the mobile phone, you'll see a little bit of the actual page that UPS served users who click that link. Or, which was really smart on UPS's part because they know that there are fewer smartphones than there are non-smartphones, so people who didn't have a web browser on their mobile device could simply email their address to the text message, and then you see the email there on the left is the email, which is a nice HTML format that UPS would send a person via their mobile device. So you're hitting people right on their phone if they can get to it, and they can apply right from there, as well as those who don't have a smartphone. They can reply with their email and get an email to their computer, which they can then look at when they get home or get on their laptop. Can you go to the next screen, please? This is another example of how text message is working, and this one is, for those of you who know Chris Hoyt, they're at Hewitt, and Michael Marley, this is one of their deals. They had text hire me, I believe, to 41411. If you were to do that, the alert that you would get basically has a link to a bit.ly, which is bit.ly, which is a shortened URL, which is a benefit because you can actually track the number of clicks that you get from that, which you can also then reinforce through your web analytics to make sure that they sync up. But Hewitt has a website that you can go to, as well as a Twitter page, which for those of you who use Twitter know that Twitter is pretty mobile friendly, and it's kind of a good way to get real-time data pretty quickly. So for Hewitt, the Twitter page is a great way to connect with people through their mobile device. The page or the service that Hewitt uses for their website is called everywhereigo.com. So they basically created a site at little to no cost to serve up to people who texted their short code. Now, there are some drawbacks when you use a free service in terms of searchability and customization, et cetera, but for those of you just dipping your toe into mobile, that might be a great way to go. Next slide, please. So another example of something that MJob did was with a company called Stryker that we deal with. Stryker was they were attending a job fair in Detroit, and there were about 100 to 150, I believe, employers at the job fair, and there were about 5,000 to 6,000 job seekers. So one of the goals that Stryker had was, we know that we're not going to be able to talk to everybody, and we know that we don't want people who do want to talk to us not have the ability to connect with us. So what we did for them was we created a short code where people, as they were in line at the show, and the picture there shows you a guy who was actually texting from the sign that we put up, was that they could actually text Stryker to our short code, and then from there they could get actual information about Stryker. They could actually search jobs that were at Stryker while they were in line. They could actually apply to learn more about Stryker from being in line. And more efficiently, when they came up to Stryker at the job fair, instead of saying, hey, what do you got? It was, hey, I just searched for jobs on my phone, and I saw a job that I think I'd be really great for. I'd love to talk to you about it. So for Stryker, it was a great time saver in that people came to the booth knowing exactly what they were looking for. So the leads and the people they talked to are much more advanced in the process than someone that didn't know who Stryker was or what was open. In addition to this, we did kind of a cool thing after the show. Roughly about 5 or 6 o'clock that evening, we sent a text message to everyone who showed interest in Stryker saying, hope you had a great show, hope you had success. Please be sure to keep Stryker on your radar with the URL to their mobile site again. So that was real effective in making your recruiters more productive, making the job seeker experience a lot better. Stryker came out of that job fair, looking like a progressive company, looking like they were really, high tech and more advanced than some of the other companies that were there. And they connected with people after the show, which is, the resume black hole is a big issue, and text messaging is a way to kind of quickly connect with people and make them feel like, you really were listening and they really were there and that you were there in the process. We did a post at Cheesehead, and you can get there at cheesehead.com/Detroit, which kind of talks about the event in a little more detail and can give you some more information. You go to the next slide, please. So search engine optimization and search engine marketing have been something that we've been doing for a long time. And what we're finding is, Google in particular is really excited about the prospects of mobile. They have their own operating system, which a lot of you probably heard of, called Android, or some of you probably know if you have a G1 phone or the new MyTouch. Google is the default browser on the iPhone. So search is a big deal, and Google understands that. So just like search engine optimization is important on the web as you know it, it's also gaining importance in terms of the mobile space as well. So one of the things that I would certainly invite you to explore is as you get into mobile and create a mobile site is that how do I best optimize this site? How do I connect with people that are searching on their mobile devices? And Google also has a patent that will help them actually identify which sites in the general search are mobile friendly and which ones aren't if you're searching on a mobile device. So certainly if you are mobile friendly and someone is searching a keyword where they might find you, they might be more inclined to click on your link if you're mobile friendly than if you aren't. Search engine marketing as well, which is more of you may know it as pay-per-click advertising, or basically buying keywords on Google or the search engines. Google, for example, allows you to buy pay-per-click advertising exclusively on mobile devices. And in particular, they even allow you to target what hand device that you're using. So if you just want to do AT&T, because that's the iPhone or something like that, they really allow you to target that pretty well. So in addition to your optimization efforts, if you're looking at driving traffic to your site that's targeted and relatively inexpensive, you might want to look at search engine marketing as well as a complement to that. Next slide, please. So here are two examples, and I showed you the Recruiting Nevada screenshot a while slides back, but we did a strictly mobile marketing campaign for them on Google, where if you search Las Vegas jobs or any similar keywords, that their mobile device or their mobile site would come up in those searches. It was really beneficial because there's not a lot of competition there. So in terms of on the web where you might have tens of sites that are competing for that keyword, on mobile devices you don't have that kind of competition, so the price comes down significantly. On the mobile ad spend, in terms of the Kelsey Group forecast, obviously right now SMS, text messaging is king in terms of connecting with people on their mobile device. But in terms of their prediction or their forecast, they're looking at search being a much bigger piece of the pie in the future. So it makes a lot of sense to start laying the groundwork from a search perspective now so that you can take advantage of those benefits into the future. Next slide, please. So we're going to go over a couple of marketing tactics on the mobile device in addition to the text messaging, the search stuff, and the search stuff. So the next thing we're talking about is referred to commonly as 2D marketing, scan code marketing, or QR code marketing. And what this is basically is just like you would go to a grocery store and have a barcode on a bag of Cheetos, you can do the same on a mobile device. So you're seeing people in companies basically where if you have traditional advertising, whether that be on a billboard, a trade publication, a banner ad even, you can do it online, trade shows, etc. People basically can take a photograph of that barcode and get served up a web page or a file or any kind of thing that you want to send them web-based. The challenge with QR codes is that you have to typically download the software to read the barcodes. ScanLife was one of the more prominent ones. They're working very hard to get their software automatically on every phone that you buy. So there's potentially a day where most of the phones that you buy will already come with the software that you need to take a snapshot of the QR code and get delivered a web page from the marketer. If you're recruiting in Asia and Europe, QR codes tend to be much more prominent than they are here in the States. So if you are recruiting in those areas, I certainly invite you to look at ways of integrating QR codes into your marketing. Next slide, please. So here's an example of what a QR code looks like. And below that is an ad for Siemens that appeared in a magazine in Germany. And my German isn't very sharp, so I don't know exactly what it says, but I do know that it's a job-related ad. So people who are looking at this trade publication, this magazine, can take a picture of this QR code from that magazine ad and get delivered on their mobile device more information about Siemens, applying to Siemens, bookmarking Siemens, so you can go back on your mobile device and look for jobs. But this is just one example of one company that's leveraging QR codes in its recruiting efforts. Next slide, please. And Amy, if you could play the last video there on QR codes, please.
Okay, Joel, we're back again.
All right, thanks, Amy. Another thing to underscore as you look at QR codes is that a lot of this stuff really helps complement traditional advertising. So if anyone out there is, doing print, billboards, trade pubs, on-site events, etc., I highly recommend looking at mobile and some of these technologies. More so than not, just because you can better track your offline marketing. So whereas, throwing a billboard up in your local community might be hard to track, tracking how many people have, texted a keyword to a short code from that campaign is certainly trackable and will help you understand exactly what you're getting for your money. Next slide, please. So the next thing that we're going to talk about is called Bluecasting. And most of you with a mobile phone probably are familiar with Bluetooth. And Bluetooth is essentially a way to take out the wires from your connection. So if you have an earpiece and you're talking on your phone, you're listening to this presentation right now, you're leveraging Bluetooth technology. Bluecasting works in a very similar way. So Bluecasting essentially is having a device in your store or where you are located, having a Bluecasting device in your job fair booth or your trade show booth, or anything where if someone had a mobile device within 100 feet or so of that device could get delivered a message from you via Bluetooth. Now, before you get all worried about a world where you're walking down the mall and get served tons of Bluecasted messages, there is the the action that you have to take in terms of opting in or pairing your device with the Bluecasting device. So without pairing it, you're not going to get information. Now, the thing that companies need to do is ask you to pair your device or your mobile to their Bluecasting device, so that any time that it does get within a certain amount of feet from that device, it can get served up a message. So in many ways, it is an opt-in technology versus kind of just a spam technology, as most people kind of think it is. So if you're doing a lot of things where you interact face to face in a mass kind of environment, I would explore Bluecasting as an option. Next slide, please. So this is just one example. This is something Pepsi did, and it was I believe a billboard in the prominent area. It might have been Times Square or somewhere bigger. But basically, they asked you to pair your device or pair your Bluetooth to theirs to get a message about Pepsi. And I don't have any examples of employers, but employers can certainly do a similar thing if they're at a job fair or something like that. Next slide, please. So if you look at all the things that mediums provide, and that crosses radio, TV, web, et cetera, the one thing that mobile really allows you to do is proximity market. And what that means basically is being able to connect with someone, whether it be a customer or candidate, that's close to you. So whereas if something's on the web, it's pretty much everywhere. A billboard, for example, could connect a lot of people in a far-reaching manner. Bluecasting and texting, or asking someone to opt in from a text message, as well as some of the advertising that's coming down the pike. And you look at what Google's doing of serving ads on an ongoing basis in terms of where you are exactly. That's proximity marketing. So if you look at recruiting being 85% local, then proximity marketing seems to make a lot of sense from a recruiting perspective. And I think we're in the relatively early stages with mobile marketing and the proximity and what that means exactly. But of all the devices out there, mobile brings a proximity element that the other mediums do not. Next slide, please. So I won't read the quote verbatim, but basically the gist of this quote is that, perceptually a lot of people out there believe mobile to be a niche market, that it's not far-reaching. But when you look at how many mobile devices there are, 4 billion, it's mainstream. I mean, every generation of my family has a mobile device. Everyone uses it. My dad texts me on a regular basis, and he's an old fart to be sure. So, we talk a lot about the college market, the retail market, but I think more and more marketing on mobile devices and connecting with vendors and companies that you want to work for through your mobile device is going to become more and more prevalent. So hopefully, if nothing else, from this PowerPoint, you got some perspective on how important or how far-reaching mobile is. Next slide, please. So in closing here, if you want to learn more about mobile marketing and kind of the growth and the charts and the numbers and more insight into certain vendors and people that can help you, we at MJob here did a white paper. If you go to mjob.com/WP, you'll be taken to the white paper. It's registration free. We don't want to know your name. We don't want to know, where you are, so you won't be bugged by salespeople. But if you like what you read, we certainly invite you to connect with us via our blog or our Twitter page or other ways to do that. Next slide, please. So I thank you for your time. I know it's valuable, and if you have any questions, whether on this call or after this call, you can feel free to contact me. You can also go to mobilerecruiting.com for more information, connect with us on Twitter, or you can text us at MJob to 95495. And with that,
well, thank you so much, Joel. I'll leave this slide up here for a little while longer to give folks a chance to jot down your contact information.
Great.
And thanks, too, for such an interesting look at mobile. We have had, as you probably imagined, a number of questions that have come in through the question and answer interface, and we'll get to as many as we can in the time that we have remaining. The first question that I'd like to go to comes from Karen in the audience. So thanks, Karen, for the question. She says, Joel, that she's planning on making an update to her careers website. and is exploring the option of going mobile friendly. What are kind of the first steps that she would take to do that, and what if her jobs aren't on the site but includes links to other sites for advertising, such as on Jobvertiser or Indeed.com?
Well, I would certainly, recommend talking to us just for more insight. But if you're looking to go mobile, there are a variety of things you can do. I mentioned the everywhereigo.com option, which is what Hewitt had done, which is kind of a self-serve mobile solution. Now, if you have something where a list of jobs really isn't feasible because you have more than, say, 25 or 50 job openings, and you want to make those searchable, I would recommend talking to a mobile vendor that could create a website for you and make those jobs searchable. We do it in such a way that people can email the jobs to themselves that they're looking for. We're currently beta testing text messaging of those jobs, so just like you will get a job alert via email, you'll get a text alert for job openings that you're looking for. So there are a few options you can do. I think it sounds like if you're taking people off your site to another site, that there's going to be the issue of if they're going to Indeed or another site, is that site mobile friendly? And certainly one of the challenges that such sites have is that if you're taking people from a mobile friendly environment to a non-mobile friendly environment, you risk losing them in the process. But to the degree that you can make the entire experience consistent to mobile, I would recommend doing that. But if not, that's definitely going to be a challenge for you.
Thank you for that. A lot of the questions that have come in through the question and answer interface have focused around costs, so I'm going to reframe some of them in a way that I think will get to the heart of the matter. You mentioned earlier that a lot of what we talk about in recruiting this year especially is about social networking and recruiting over social networks. When you compare the total number of users, Facebook, for instance, at 250 million and growing, around about that number, and look at how much organizations are spending on communicating with candidates in the social media arena, how does mobile cost compare to that? Is it something that you think will be cheaper and the same level or more expensive than recruiting over social networking?
Yeah, the challenge with mobile is that it costs money to send text messages, right? So, and it also costs money to potentially surf on your mobile device. So to that degree, there may be a more expensive element to it. Now, I will also say that, and one of the things that I failed to mention in my presentation was that if you look at deliverability rates or open rates on mobile versus, say, email, for example, email open right now is around 33%. Open rates on text messaging is about 92%. So although you're looking at an additional cost, if you gauge it to the actual audience that will be getting your message, it's probably worth the minimal expense that you would incur with text messaging. Now, I also think that when you look at the marketing landscape as a whole, there is no silver bullet. There is no one solution that works exclusively. So I certainly recommend people doing social and job sites and search engines and Twitter and everything else. But the fragmentation of our world, dictates that mobile should be one of the things that you use, and it should complement everything else that you're doing. So if you have a Facebook fan site, or if you're on Twitter and you have either you're a recruiter or a company with a Twitter page, if you're posting jobs online, you should be asking people to connect with you through their mobile device. So whether that's on your Facebook fan site, you have something that says, text ABC company to the short code. If you have that same message in your job postings or on your Twitter site, connecting with people and building that database of phone numbers is going to be very powerful because it's going to get through, whereas some of the other mediums where there's a lot of noise, you may not have that issue with text messaging because you do have that cost.
Interesting. Yep. Here's a question from Mark for you, Joel. And I thank you, Mark, for the question. He wants to know, essentially what we're talking about in mobile recruiting, if you will, is really about communicating with a candidate or a talent pool and then bringing them into our processes. How much of the mobile recruiting that's going on, are people actually applying over mobile devices, or are they just getting into like a corporate communication about careers?
Yeah. Right now, for the most part, applicant tracking systems, job sites don't play very well with the technology at a very basic level. So there's a chance that your ATS is not very mobile friendly. So even if someone, could go to that system or went to that system, they probably wouldn't have a very good experience. The second piece of that is if your applicant tracking system is long, if there are multiple pages that someone has to go through, if there's, upload your Word doc, I think we're quite a ways from that. So what we do typically is, one of a few things. One is either, allow people to email themselves the job or bookmark it, and then if they can go online and get like on their account or the dashboard which jobs have I starred and which ones haven't I or bookmarked, and then go through the apply process that way. The other thing is if you want to just set up a very simple, give us your name, your email address, your phone number, and any basic notes or something, and then we'll get in contact with you, where you can then email the person and say thanks for your interest. If you want to apply, please go through our process. If you are a job board or you have a system where someone is already logged in, then you can create fairly easily a system where, click apply and it automatically applies. But if we're talking to employers and systems where there's applicant tracking and things like that, it becomes really difficult. And to expect that one day that applicant tracking systems will get on board with mobile and make it easy, or there'll be a consistent platform where, if I have my resume on this ATS, I can utilize that same account on multiple ATSs, and all those are mobile friendly, I think we're probably a ways from that. And the other thing to consider is that mobile should be considered an appetizer versus a meal. Just like on eBay, for example, or Facebook, you can't do everything on the mobile version that you can on the web version. And the reality is that most people aren't going to do everything that they would on a website that they would on a mobile device. So even if we had these things and ATSs were mobile friendly, I'm not sure the evidence is there to say that people would go through the entire process. So simplifying that is going to be a challenge, and hopefully we'll be able to get through that, but it will be tough.
But maybe you want to at least be able to capture them when they go, oh, I really need a new job, and go out to your site on their smartphone, right?
Yes. I mean, if they visit your mobile device directly, I mean, you want to create ways where they can connect with you, whether that's submit your information, whether that's bookmark our site, so where you can essentially create a widget on their mobile device that they can then, click on you, kind of like an app on the iPhone. Text messaging is great because if someone texts your company to a short code, you're going to collect that phone number. I mean, people have essentially opted in to get information about your company. So once you have that phone number, you can then start text messaging, just like the Sumo Text example. So if you're a retailer and you're opening up in Oklahoma City, you can then segment all the phone numbers that you have within the Oklahoma City area and text those people and say, hey, we're opening up a new store, or we're looking for seasonal help, or whatever, and then you can connect with those people very quickly, get a good open rate, and get applications pretty quickly.
You mentioned the pervasive use of SMS in regions like Europe and the Middle East and India. I know it's very popular as a medium for employers to communicate with candidates. What do you think the big barrier has been in North America? Why aren't more employers using it here?
Well, historically, adoption rates, in recruiting and HR are relatively slow. Whereas, other countries where it's hey, if we want to connect with people, we have to do it in these different ways, say text messaging. Most companies, I would say, feel like they have enough applicants through the web. The mindset of HR isn't necessarily marketing. I think it's definitely more so than it was 5 years ago. But now that we have Twitter and Facebook and social media, and people are like, well, I got to think about Google and what's this Bing thing, and now we have Indeed and Simply Hired, and we have all these different options. I think people are forced in HR and other industries to start looking outside of post a newspaper ad or post a job on a job board. So my hope is that as the economy improves and as people need more people and that it becomes more challenging or difficult to find people, that mobile will become one of the ways that we do that. I also think that there's kind of a herd mentality in human nature, period. And I think that it probably would take a few large, brands in the U.S. to start doing mobile and doing it well for people to kind of go, oh, geez, we should probably be doing that also. So I think the dam will break eventually. I think the economy is a hindrance, and we just need some of those really good examples of companies here that are really high profile to get people, I think, energized around mobile recruiting.
Well, good call to action. I know we have several senior level recruiting folks from large brands on the webcast with us today. So here's your call to action, you talent acquisition leaders. Go ahead.
Be the guinea pig.
The pace. That's right. Well, Joel, I'm afraid that does bring us to the end of our time together today. I still have up for our audience, if they'd like to connect with you, your email address and phone number. They can also check you out at mobilerecruiting.com or follow you on Twitter at mjob. So, Joel, thank you so much for taking us into what I think is a really fascinating look at new technologies for recruitment.
Thank you, Amy. I really appreciate it. And thanks to everybody for their time.
I'd like to say thank you, too, to our HCI members for coming to this webcast. Stay tuned. We do have another one starting in just a few minutes. You can join community leader Joy Costa from the talent development community. She's going to be bringing to you a program on enhancing business performance with systematic talent management. So if you're interested in staying tuned for that, you can stay seated right where you are, and it will get started at the top of the hour. If you want more access to our blogs, networking with each other, groups, and more, be sure to check us out on our social network at www.humancapitalist.org. Once again, that's humancapitalist.org. Otherwise, thanks. It was great to see you. We'll look forward to seeing you on another webcast soon. Have a great day.